Technical difficulties. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. Caffeine. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we get going, the usual disclaimers. First off, in the description box, we have a link to a special article, an article over which the JRC decided they were going to pick on a small, non-for-profit run for autistics called NeuroClastic. They wrote an article in 2021 where they surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the quote-unquote treatment plan at the JRC. And because we be petty, we be very petty, I linked that article right there in the description box, so please read the article the JRC feels threatened by. Also, go to the bottom of the description box. You're going to see a link to the GoFundMe for NeuroClastic. We are crowdfunding in order to assist in covering legal fees because NeuroClastic refuses to back down, even though being threatened with a defamation lawsuit. That's right, folks. We will not be silenced. We will, however, crowdfund the fuck out of this if need be. If you can spare a dime, a dollar, anything that you can give would be deeply appreciated. We also have the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. Folks, when we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones, all right? It is 9:01 a.m. I am not quite so exhausted, in a terrific mood, but if I stumble over my words still, folks, apologies in advance, all right? Okay, so let's go to where we left off the other day. Another form of mechanical restraint occurs when a student is in a 5-point restraint chair. Students may be restrained for extensive periods of time, hours, or intermittently for days when restraint is used as a punishing consequence. Also proved by the Andre McCollins video. But the JRC, much like others who won't be named, whose time is up today, like to sit there and say, who are you going to believe, if us or your lying eyes? Let's see what they got. But shall we? JRC never uses long periods of restraint in a chair or in a 4-point restraint board as punishing consequence. Really, because there's a 7-hour video that says otherwise. I'm talking about the Andre McCollins video where they strapped him in a 4-point board face down with a helmet over his head and proceeded to shock him over 31 times over a 7-hour period. Funny how they like to say they don't do things and then video manifests. In 2012, that proves the exact opposite, doesn't it? 1 second. Sorry. Die allergies. Moving on. The June report states that the GED causes burns. The GED device does not cause burns. It has been reported to cause minor discoloration of the skin or redness. At times, a scab can occur, possibly in case of the electrode not been placed into proper contact with the skin, a harmless blister but never a burn. Most often, any marks left by the GED disappear within a few days. But we can counter that with medical documents from Andre McCollins and other victims you all have tortured. That's right, folks. Medical documents. We love them here on this channel. We like our receipts, and we got all of them, JRC. That is an out-and-out lie. If you compare and contrast their bullshit with actual medical documents, you can see the lie immediately. It doesn't even take that much to debunk. There are actual photographs of Andre McCollins' injuries. There's also the testimonies of the other victims of this place. But, Who you gonna trust, us or your lion eyes, right? Moving forward. The June report describes an incident in which a student complained of a hand pain and swelling from restraint. JRC staff is trained on the state-of-art methods of safe restraint and must pass a competency exam before being allowed to work with students, as well as complete a yearly in-service training. JRC's use of restraints is closely monitored by JRC's on-site nursing staff, as well as JRC's consulting physicians and administrative staff. JRC cannot speak to the circumstances of this allegation because reviewers again failed to identify which JRC student claimed to have this problem. But there's other reports from court documents, no less, documented again by medical professionals outside your school, which backs this claim up. They want you to believe them, folks, but they don't want you looking at the evidence, which is why they are pressing NeuroClastic and others like NeuroClastic, like ASAN, so hard. They don't like the fact that we were able to get our hands on all the receipts. But if you don't believe me, please visit Autistic Hoya's massive archive. You will find receipts that go all the way back to the 70s. Moving forward. The June report indicates that one New York student was interviewed and reported not being able to attend an IEP meeting because she was being restrained and then cried during the IEP meeting. It also states that the CSE recommend the student be faded from the GED. The name of this student is not provided, so once again it is impossible for the JRC to respond with this detail. JRC has an excellent record with making so much progress with its students that many students can attend and participate in their own IEP meetings. Actually, JRC, there's a few points on this one. First off, the reason why the New York investigators did that was in order to protect the student. For a school that's known to retaliate and punish people, per testimony of Jennifer Masemba, for daring to speak up about their mistreatment at that place, you're gonna bet that New York knew about it, having interviewed the person over which the 2006 court case was about. So they're going to know that the JRC has a tendency to punish anyone who dares speak out about their torture of the students in that place. So what are they going to do? They're going to try and protect the student by not giving the JRC their names. It is a protective measure, JRC. They're not going to give you that name so you can go back and then torture, starve, and sleep deprive that student. Fair enough, right? As far as their excellent record of making progress, again, being able to torture someone to the point of having a trauma response to where they basically act catatonically and robot-like is not success in anyone's eyes, but apparently JRC and the parents that defend them. Traumatizing and causing someone to live in so much goddamn fear that they give automatic robotic responses and almost move robotically just to avoid being tortured, that's not success. Not at all. Not to mention, law says that the student has a right to participate in their own IEP meetings, regardless of whether they're being punished or not. We have a legal right to be there and have our voice heard in regards to our own individual education plans, JRC. I was involved with every single one of my fucking IEP meetings when I was a child and as I grew older. Every single one of them. Period. Regardless if my grades were bad, regardless if they thought my behaviors weren't normal enough, I was still there at every goddamn meeting. And we're talking literally bumfuck Bible Belt backwards as fuck middle of fucking nowhere, Missouri. in the 90s. Okay? Okay? We get that? It is against the law to not have that student participate in a meeting that has to do with their own education. Period. Period. Moving on. The June report incorrectly describes the use of restraint in combination with GED as a definition of behavioral rehearsal lessons. Now we're going to hear bullshit. Before we get into it, let me remind everyone here, my audience that watch these videos, what behavioral rehearsal lessons are. This is this bizarre idea of treatment that is only done at the JRC, where staff will jump out and literally fucking attack us out of nowhere in order to induce a quote-unquote behavior so that the student can then be punished for that behavior. Now, if the student does not perform the behavior and resists, they get shocked for non-compliance. If they perform the behavior that the JRC wants them to perform, they get punished. You can see how this is psychotic, right? And their whole idea behind this idea, is that they're teaching them that the action is wrong. Right? That's fucking sadistic and psychotic, right? And that's not just me. Never in my whole professional life when I worked for the state did we ever do anything remotely like this or approve it for anyone. At all. At all! This is not considered therapy on anywhere else on the fucking planet except this one school in Massachusetts. Why? Well, to quote one article from back in the day, it's inhumane and cruel beyond all reason. Now let's read their bullshit. JRC does not restrain students when administering BRLs. There are no behavioral rehearsal lessons conducted while reviewers were present at JRC, so they have no basis for making this false claim. Really? Because I remember Jennifer Masumba. And by the way, that's not what the New York report said, JRC. Let me catch you in your little lie right here. What New York reported was exactly what I just told you right before I read that. They referred to the way students would be fucking restrained in regards to the behavioral lessons. First, the grabbing of them while threatening them, which has been backed up. And also, it also refers to what I just said. Shocking them if they do, shocking them if they don't. If they do, that's when they would get restrained to the 4-point board. Again, I refer to Jennifer Masumba on this, and she has a whole list of blogs and things where she discusses this type of insanity. Moving on, the contingent food program is widely applied. Now, what is the contingent food program? This is what we call starvation in anywhere but fucking Massachusetts, where you force a student to have to earn every single bite of their breakfast, lunch, and dinner by performing proper behaviors. No other child in any school anywhere has to earn the right to eat as a reward, but at the JRC they do. Let's read this. Only 6% of the New York school-age students have the contingent food program currently in their contracts. It shouldn't exist at all. It shouldn't exist at all. No child should have to fucking perform like a goddamn circus monkey in order to get every single parcel of food. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And here we go again. The contingent food program is designed to use hunger to motivate students to be compliant. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But let's see what their lie says here. This is false. The contingent food program uses mini meals as an effective reward. The mini meals are used for two purposes: to reward task completion for students for whom this form of motivation is required or helpful, and to reward the student for behaving appropriately during a period in which he or she has not shown certain previously exhibited problematic behaviors. The primary difference from a normal eating pattern is that the students eat smaller mini meals throughout the day, contingent on the students displaying certain behaviors, instead of the 3 full meals of normal meal times. No student goes hungry at all. Each is offered his or her full complement of calories each day. Bullshit. Bullshit. Remember what we read in a New York report and what has been backed up by numerous survivors and former employees? Let me remind you what that is, okay? They have to earn every single bite of food they get. If they have behaviors, they don't get to eat breakfast. They don't, by the time they hit dinner, these kids, if they act autistic at all, if they're not masking and catatonic 24-7, they are starved till dinner time. And what do they get for their dinner? A soy mash covered in liver powder that no autistic will fucking eat. We will fucking choose to starve. We will choose to starve before we're going to eat that mash with liver powder over it. And there has been literally students who have heard that they are trying to starve them into compliance. The JRC is lying off their ass here. And again, in Autistic Hoya's massive archive, we've got the fucking documents to back it up. You do indeed starve those students, JRC. The fact that you say we comply because we make them eat this liver powdered stuff because they didn't earn the right to eat proper, normal, nutritious fucking food is garbage, and you goddamn know it. Moving on. We're moving to the next part here. The June report incorrectly states that makeup food is mashed food. The makeup food consists of mashed potatoes, spinach, and chicken, which is garnished with liver powder. It's not true, but it's true. Right? Right. Seriously? Incorrectly states that makeup food is mashed food. Then proceeds to tell us it's mashed food with liver powder. Garnished with liver powder. You see how that's worse, right? Just saying. So let's kind of go over the synopsis here of what we covered this morning. We have caught the JRC in several fucking lives about their behavioral research lessons, rehearsal lessons, about how they use restraints, about their food contingency program where they proceed to starve us for not hitting their romanticized idea of normal that doesn't even exist in the real world. And if you do not hit that normal, you get punished for it. And you get starved for it. And we got all the receipts to back it up. But the JRC doesn't want you to look at receipts. They don't want you to see the input from other ABA professionals across the country and across the world that use other methods. They don't want you to know about the professionals outside ABA that use completely different types of programs like person-centered planning, which they slandered earlier in this report here, that have been successful. Amazingly so. You wouldn't believe the numbers since we rolled it out in my state starting around the early 2000s, late 90s. The numbers speak for themselves, but the JRC are going to have you believe that that's all for their quote unquote high functionings. We've already debunked this concept of functioning levels. It's bullshit and it's bad for you. But we've also debunked this idea that the JRC would have you believe that for the worst of the worst, that the only thing that works is torture. Every single state has someone who is quote unquote as severe as the people inside their school. We don't torture the students. And yet somehow we have had massive success with person-centered planning and other types of programs like it. Oh, but they would have you believe that somehow these kids aren't severe. They're going to have you believe that only in Massachusetts and New York, and from the unfortunate few who still get sent from California, somehow they are the worst of the worst in the whole world. It's bullshit. The numbers literally don't work. And on that note, folks, I'm going to go ahead and close out this morning. We don't get very many views on this channel, especially on this subject. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. Do appreciate your time this morning. And as always, we here at Smelling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.